Sibrel is an award-winning filmmaker, writer, and investigative journalist. He has produced films shown on ABC, NBC, CNN, The Learning Channel, USA, BET, and The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. He has appeared on The Daily Show, Geraldo, NBC, CNN, Fox, Tech TV, The Abrams Report. Last week, he was on Coast to Coast with me. He's back with us on Fade to Black tonight. Bart directed the Apollo documentary, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, and also Astronauts Gone Wild. Tonight, we're going to be discussing all of that. You can go to his website, www.sibrel.com, Sibrel.com. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Mr. Bart Sibrel. Bart, good evening, sir.
Hey, Jimmy, how's it going?
It's going fantastic, and thank you for coming back on with us. It's always great to have you on the show, and it was a lot of fun having you on Coast Friday night, and especially, with all the hubbub that's going around with that interview and everything else, and it was last minute, and thank you for coming on the Coast. It was a great conversation, and we just decided, the two of you, let's continue it and go a little bit deeper tonight. So thank you for finding the time to come on with us and share your thoughts with the Fade or Not family.
No problem.
Now, before we get started, because I do want to talk about the moon landing hoax, and we've got a lot of stuff to discuss there, and also my thoughts have certainly gotten stronger over the last year and a half since you were on the show. I can't believe it's been that long, but it has been. But now that the weekend has gone by, and let me tell you, Bart, I had email over the weekend after the Coast show, after everything that I posted, and I had Jay Widener on the show last Thursday too, as well as Coast to Coast on Friday. I've emailed over the weekend going, Jimmy, man, this could be real. It could be. It's funny, Bart, isn't it? People are going to see what they're going to see, and they're going to believe what they want to believe, no matter what we say about it. Do you find that strange?
Well, it's a work of art. It's not him. I mean, they talk about me having Aldrin swear on the Bible 3.5 years before it happened. The guy looks a little bit like him, got the same receding hairline, and it sounds a lot like him, I think, but it's not him. But it's interesting. I remember when Trump resigned, I think, from the 2012 election, and there was some roast at the White House, and Obama said, "I'm glad you're out of the race now. Perhaps you can stop focusing on whether I was born in Kenya or not and focus on more important things, like whether or not the moon landings are real." And the fact is, the moon landings are not real. Obama born in Kenya, I have no idea, but it could be. You never know. That being the case, if you're really good and you're in control and you have, nothing to worry about, you can say something absurd like a joke. And that's kind of what this video is. There's that film coming out, Moonwalkers, in January. And I think they saw that and, came up with an idea, something like that. It's pretty clever. But if there's a 20-minute version out there, in the second half, the director's telling the, Kubrick character what to say. And yet at the beginning, he acts surprised. So, it's contrived, but, some of it was taken out of context. People don't listen to the last half, and figure it out. But, it's kind of fun, interesting. The fact is, if they're making this movie, even though it's a comedy, what they are actually saying is the moon landings are fake, and Kubrick probably had something to do with it, which both are probably, the moon landings are definitely fake, and Kubrick probably shooting 2001, at the time, about going to the moon, probably, that was the guy they would have chosen to make it look real. So it's kind of fun. It's telling the truth through the teeth, just like Obama did. The moon landings, are fake, which is, he made a joke of all the while they are fake, you see. So it's, kind of interesting. At least we're talking about it, and people, know that it was fake, unfortunately. And
yeah, the one thing, and I brought this up on Coast on Friday with you, the one thing that prompted me to write you nearly in real time after I saw it happen, I wrote you and I said, okay, because I had to scratch my head and go, what? Okay, when did that come out? That was like 2001, 2002. Could he have been out there on the streets with the Bible and doing this thing in 1999? That is the one key thing here that would absolutely unravel the whole thing. So I wrote you. And I said that. I said, okay, Bart, I know that the movie came out in 2001, But were you out there in 1999 speaking about this and doing the Bible thing? And you can emphatically say that none of that happened until 2002. And if that is indeed the case, and you're the guy that can make that statement, then there's nothing to consider in this alleged 1999 video. It is completely hoaxed. It's completely fake.
Well, definitely. The incident with the punch and everything, that was in September of 2002, and Kubrick died in March of 1999, and the difference between the two is 3.5 years. So they're referring to me 3.5 years before I became known for asking an astronaut around the Bible. But it's still pretty good, you know. He says some relevant things. Again, you know, I don't know if it's for fun. It probably is, but it's still, you know, it's bringing awareness to the topic, even though it's fake, you know. It shows you how something fake can be convincing, which there's another proof that the moon landings are fake right there.
Now let's back. Well, you know, Kubrick could have been time travelers. You know, that could be the error. Maybe they. maybe.
You know, I just got back from the future, and I heard you say that.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's go a little bit before a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. Let's back up to that. Before that, when you were a kid, were you a fan of you know, astronauts and Apollo and Gemini and Mercury and the space program in general?
I was the biggest fan I'd ever met in my whole life. My dad was in the Air Force, and as an officer, he got these kind of publicity stills. I think about a dozen 9x12 color pictures. I had them on my bedroom wall for 10 years, so I saw them nearly 4,000 times. And then when I was 14, there was this guy, one of the first guests on Oprah, and he was doing a couple other talk shows. He worked for Rocketdyne, a contractor of NASA, and he was there, and he was the English editor. So the thing was so departmentalized, no one saw the whole picture except him and the senior people, because he edited the grammar of all these memos going back and forth. And he saw that they weren't going to go to the moon. They were planning on faking it and so forth. And so I started producing, you know, the film. I mean, I guess I planted a seed. You know, when I was 14, 10 years later, I was a filmmaker. And actually, the guy who had produced that program was sitting beside me. I was editing something for him. I forget what it was. And I'm like, remember the guy in your show who said the moon landings are fake? And he put me in touch with them. And I originally turned down the project. I thought, you know, there's some strange things about this. The shadows don't intersect, and the Russians are more advanced, and the radiation and the weird behavior of the astronauts. You know, there's at least a 1 out of 4 chance they didn't go. And I like puzzles, and I'm kind of a relentless personality, so I turned it down. I figure if 1 out of 4 chance they really didn't go to the moon and I start overturning these rocks, it might be hazardous to my health. So I thought, why should I die for someone else's lie? I always wanted to, you know, have a future and a family, so I risked that. But 5 years went by, and I started reading the Bible about right and wrong and judgment, and I thought, you know, that kind of makes sense, which means this spectacular lie, if it were a lie, would be very profound to history, and yet very few people would know about it. So we raised $500,000. It was financed by a board member of an aerospace company who's at this hour making rockets for NASA. The guy's got like 175 IQ, and he knows from an engineering point of view they never went to the moon in the 60s. And so his patriotic duty was funding these films. And 3.5 years into the film, I thought we'll never know, but wrong. We got a previously, you know, censored tape, an hour of one shot over and over again of them faking part of the photography right in front of your eyes. Plus a little third channel of audio of the CIA or somebody like that, prompting them to only answer 4 seconds after dead air to create this impression that they're further away from the Earth than they really were. And we have all that on the tape, too. It's concrete proof they didn't go. Before this footage, I'd say it's a theory, but with this footage, it's a fact.
What did that do to you emotionally? You know, like you said, you were the biggest fan, and then this unravels. Were you ever tempted not to do the film because of that and your own, you know, patriotism and the way that you felt about this country, that maybe we shouldn't go ahead and go forward with this, and I'll keep this to myself?
It's patriotic to expose the truth. What the faking of the moon landing was an unpatriotic act. It was cheating in the Olympics. and cheaters in the Olympics don't deserve to win. And there was a space race, and they cheated. It's a fact. It may be an unpleasant fact, but it needs to be exposed. You can forgive everybody as long as they tell the truth. And, they can't go to the moon today, 50 years later. So how could they possibly go on the first attempt with 1960s technology? It just defies reality.
What about I think one of the unintended things for you, which was great, was to allow other researchers out there after seeing your film to be motivated to go out and start to uncover, other aspects, time constraints and everything else for you, that you can go and investigate everything. Plus, there's other minds out there that go into other directions and think outside of the box. But you sort of created an entire industry about the Apollo moon landing hoax. And what do you think about the other evidence that has been revealed since 2001?
Well, there's a lot of good information up there. If you go to Sibrel.com, under the moon films, there's actually, I think, the second one. First is A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, and the next one is one I just contributed to. It's a Fox special called Conspiracy Theory, Did We Land on the Moon? It was the first pilot episode of Conspiracy Theory. The thing was so popular, it aired 3 times in 1 year. And Fox wouldn't air A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon without major editing because they said, it was too accusational, without hearing the other side of the story. My thought was, we've heard their side of the story at that point, for 35 years. So 45 minutes of the other point of view, I think that's, fair trade. But they didn't like that. They did their own, but it's a, profoundly investigated program that uncovered things I didn't know about, some I did know about, but did not share. And, you tag that film with the footage, which is in my film, and I think you have enough evidence, more than enough, to know that the moon landings were fake. The government won't admit it because, fear of repercussions or whatever. But it's just the way it is. Sometimes you have to face reality, even if it's unpleasant.
What did you think about? Do you stay up on top of all of the new evidence that's dealing with the Apollo hoax? Do you stay up on it?
Not really. I try to put it behind me. It's just an incredibly intense project. And I do interviews about it, and I'm writing one last little memoir, a book by the same title as the first film, and it'll be an ebook with links to it and everything in there. But it's an exhausting topic. I think I've done enough. The fact is, the moon landings are fake. If you're open-minded, if you watch A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon and Conspiracy Theory, Did We Land on the Moon, I don't see how you could think we really went. Plus the fact that Russia just said their goal to put a man on the moon is 2030. Now that means they're projecting 15 years it's going to take to develop the technology to go to the moon. And yet, wait a minute, Kennedy in 1961, only 8 years, half the time practically, they went to the moon, and half the time with 50 years older technology. Well, that's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
50 years later, it's going to take twice as long to reach the moon. Maybe.
What about a couple of? I want to address a couple of the big talk out there when it comes to the hoaxes. Number one, the Freemason connection, and the Freemasons can keep secrets, so the astronauts being Freemasons can keep secrets, and that was a priority for NASA and the government. What do you think about that?
Well, I heard that. I actually haven't looked into that. I've heard from more than one source that Aldrin is or was a Mason, whatever. And I've heard that every astronaut has been, except maybe the teacher or somebody like that. I don't know if that's true. I don't think it's relevant or not necessarily. The fact is they didn't go. Now, you can try to figure out who perpetrated that for what reason. Nixon was president at the time, and figure out the military people. And I don't know. My first source, who told me it was fake before I believed it, said it was all about money. The rocket wasn't really going to the moon, so they could milk all this more profit out of it, spend it on black projects in, Cambodia or Laos or whatever, where Congress didn't approve the war to go, and they went there and did it. Who knows? The fact is they did fake it. They have not yet admitted it. Therefore, they're suspect for trust.
And one of the other interesting angles that is surfaced is that they only use really one image of the Earth, over and over and over again. And if I go back and I look at the funny thing happened on the way to it almost seems like it's that image that they used in their films too, and it's the same image of Earth over and over again, and we don't have any fresh images. Therefore, we didn't go to the moon.
Well, a year ago this month, NASA sent a probe called the Orion probe into the Van Allen radiation belt. Now, most people don't know, starting, at least where it gets strong, about 1,000 miles up above the Earth and extending about 25,000 miles is this lethal band of radiation. Every mission in space history, Gemini, Mercury, the space shuttle, the space station, Skylab, all that's well below, 750 miles below the radiation. However, if they went to the moon, they'd have to go through this radiation to the moon and back. In this Orion video they did promoting the mission, they said they're going to 3,600 miles and U-turning. So whatever is at 3,600 miles is their destination, and what is there is the Van Allen radiation belt. The guy humbly named it after himself. So they're going up to the radiation belt with two Geiger counters, two different types of Geiger counters, right? Okay, so the point of the mission is to measure the radiation. And the guy in the video, it's so bizarre, he says there is a dangerous field of radiation surrounding the Earth. And then he says, on camera, we must first learn to protect astronauts before we can send people through this region of space. So he's admitting that the technology to protect them from going through this radiation does not yet exist. So wait a minute. They claim to have had that technology, or it didn't matter, the radiation, back when they allegedly went to the moon and orbited the moon. That'd be a total of 9 times in, 9 times out, 18 times here in the radiation belt. No radiation sickness, no radiation poisoning. And now they're saying it's dangerous and the technology does not yet exist to protect people from it. Then how did they go through it to the moon and back? They didn't. The tape we uncovered not only shows a fake shot, it shows them faking being halfway to the moon, meaning they couldn't go halfway because they're faking it. So they're in Earth orbit, and that's what they did. They went up and they got, to launch in front of people. And they got to splash down in front of people, and they got real zero gravity of the peanut butter sandwich floating by,
right,
which they could achieve from Earth orbit. But
right,
they just stayed there for 8 days, you know what I mean?
Right. And
everything beyond that was faked. And, NASA virtually admitted it in this Orion video,
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's the same video that the interview that I saw, and I think I spoke to you about this on Friday on Coast, but I don't know if it's the same interview, but it's certainly the same verbal slip-ups. And he literally looks in the camera and says, as soon as we can figure out this Van Allen, I'm paraphrasing here, as soon as we can figure out this Van Allen belt thing and we can get through that safely, we're going to the moon. He didn't say going back to the moon. It was like this weird, and I was like, wait, what do you, you can't be that dumb. Or was it just a natural slip up, and then they let the interview go out that way? It's exactly what wasn't supposed to be said. You know what I mean? It's 180 degrees off of what they needed to say in that interview.
Well, I think because the tide is turning. It used to be a minority of people who thought the moon landings were fake. And now with that generation died away whose hearts melted when they saw it on TV, now people never saw that, never had that emotional imprinting, look at it objectively, and they objectively say, they didn't know. And so, I think because the tide is turning, they're kind of come up, with these kind of misinformation, or maybe it's their way, I think it's pretty, telling the truth. I think it's pretty positive. You got this film. It looks really good. I'm a pretty good judge of previews, and it looked like a really sharp film coming out called Moonwalkers about them asking Kubrick to fix the moon mission, which indeed they more than likely did. And it's so funny. I think maybe the truth is coming out, and even if it's a hoax about a hoax, it's still a hoax, and it still shows how you can mislead people. The fake Kubrick interview proves how you can mislead people with the television image. right?
Yeah, and go viral really, really quick and get an alternative message out there. I did get an email.
Yeah, it went viral. It went viral in 1969. 1 billion people were watching it viral, you see? And it imprinted that on them, and they don't want to give it up, you know?
Somebody emailed me and said, Jimmy, why would they hoax a hoax of a hoax? And I wrote him back and said, so you could email me and ask me this question. Think about that for a second. And that's, it's really the funny view.
I played poker with a guy, and he did something I think I called a double bluff or the triple bluff. He, made me know that he was bluffing, and I knew that that's what he wanted me to know. Therefore, I thought that, but he thought one past me. It was pretty incredible. And you can do double bluffs, triple bluffs, and, mess with people's mind and say the facts right in front of people of crimes and make it look like a joke, Yeah. And but according to Shakespeare, and Jesus, the truth will come out.
We're about to take a break. I wanted to read you this. This is from Renee, one of our producers here, and she said, "Hi, Bart. This is not a question for you tonight, just a comment. And you should thank your lucky stars, Bart, that you didn't get a question from Renee because she is harsh. She is good." Anyway, she says, "Thanks for your website articles on the proven dangers of vaccines and fluoridation. As an activist with the Fluoride Action Network, I highly recommend them to every Fade to Black listener. Thank you, Bart." So there you go. I just read her statement.
Well, these are just things I learned. Again, I used to think the moon landings are real, probably for the majority of my life. Now I know the facts. And, I grew up like everyone else thinking vaccines are good. It's a good thing. And then because of mainly natural news, Mike Adams, I studied that plus his sources. And I realized, there's something squirrely going along with that. They never bring up a simple point. If you wanted to protect yourself from all the viruses, only you need the vaccine. You could have the entire rest of the planet not vaccinated, and you'd be protected. So why do you need us to be vaccinated? No one ever asked that question, do they?
And and on the same subject, in a weird way, Stanley talked about that in 1964. In Dr. Strangelove. There are no coincidences, are there? Isn't that strange? Or were they worried about fluoridation back in 1964? I don't know. I was born in 63.
No, people knew about it from the moment they mandated putting it in the water supply. People knew something was wrong about this. Now, remember, Obama just said to Trump, recently, 4 years ago, why don't you focus on the moon landings being fake? Okay? And then in a film by Kubrick, who faked the moon landing, you see, they say fluoridation is bad for you, and the person who says it is crazy. You see how brilliant that is?
Yes.
How brilliant that is? Fluoridation is bad for you from a person, a character who's crazy. You see? That's pretty sly, if you ask me.
Yeah, pretty slick. Hoaxing the hoax with a hoax, right? Same thing, the double bluff.
Yeah. The guy, I can tell you this, the guy who first told me the moon landings are fake, he said, "Bart, you need to get water distilled." And I've been drinking distilled water and using non-fluoridated toothpaste for the last 8 years. I just had a checkup, 0 cavities. I haven't used fluoride in 8 years.
What does your dad think about the movie?
Well, I think he's amused by it. He thinks the moon landings are real. He was in the Air Force, and he thinks it's an insult, to the pilots to say it wasn't real. And he's smarter than me. His IQ is substantially higher than mine. And yet, the Bible says with that knowledge can come pride, which blinds you from seeing other facts. And I have imagination as a filmmaker, and I can comprehend how they could pull it off. And with those eyes, not being hypnotized, I look at it objectively, and sure enough, I see things. I'm a filmmaker. My job is to make fake scenes look real. And I can tell you that these pictures that they claim are on the moon were lit with electrical lighting. I bet my life on it. 100%, it's a fact. Just like, at a wine tasting, the guy can tell you who teaches the class, where the wine came from, how old it is. I can look at, lighting and tell you, is that sunlight or electrical light? It's my job. And when I saw the pictures finally, I'm like, these are shot inside in a television studio. That's pretty interesting. I don't know. The problem is that it's really the only positive conspiracy, Jimmy. I mean, whoever killed Kennedy is dead. Whoever did 9/11, 3,000 people are dead. But this is like telling someone their team, which won the Super Bowl, did so by cheating, putting drugs in the opposing team's Gatorade. How dare you say such a thing? And people, associate it with intellectualism, science. If you're a teacher, if you're an intellectualist, you're an American, we did it. Even though, we won the game, you're not even there in the stadium, much less on the field. We went to the moon. You're trying to take it away. It's a positive conspiracy, and people don't want to give it up like sweet candy.
Let's take a break right there. It's a good spot to do it. Thank you, Bart. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. More with Bart Sibrel right after this break. Tonight, we're talking about a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Back right after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Ray Sobs here once again to tell you about the Space and Alien Snowfest Ufology Conference taking place in the ski resort city of Big Bear Lake in sunny Southern California. What a lineup. Richard Dolan, Chase Kletsky, Micah Hanks, George Norrie, Jason Martell, Jimmy Church, Linda Moulton Howe, keynote speaker Stanton Friedman, and more. Along with the speakers and lecturers, join the luncheon hosted by Jimmy Church. See a world-class UFO ET-themed ice sculpture contest with attendees voting the winner. Enjoy the quaint shops, restaurants, and pubs in Big Bear Lake Village, and enjoy some of the best sky watching you can imagine. After the hectic holidays, gift yourself with a retreat the first week of February, and come relax with us in a premier ski resort town high in the mountains of the Southern Sierras, with an average of over 300 sunny days a year. Take advantage and book your lodging early and get your tickets now. Visit our website and register at aliensnowfest.com. That's aliensnowfest.com.
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air, to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's all here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With the mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Tonight we have very special guest Bart Sibrel is with us. We're talking about his documentary, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. Tomorrow night, Bob Mitchell is going to be right here. We're going to be talking about Close Encounters of the Canadian Kind. Wednesday night, Jim Mars right here. And then, of course, Thursday night, Open Lines and Fader Night. Now, getting back to Bart, and I will heavily right now recommend that all of you go to Bart's website, go and watch the documentary If Anything Happened on the Way to the Moon. And especially before you ask any questions with me or shoot me an email or write Bart, you got to go watch the movie first and draw your own conclusions. There's a lot of information there. And Bart, I asked you early on in the show about you being a kid and a fan of the space program, because I was too. And all boys, well, maybe a couple of strange ones weren't, in America at that time in the 60s and 70s, that's all we did was dream about. We had our favorite astronauts. We had the posters. We had the models. We drew pictures. It's what we did. And knowing what I know now, and especially after watching your documentary and other information out there and interviewing a lot of people, I scratch my head and I just wonder, could we have faked it? You know, is it possible? And one of the things that freaks me out is the spacesuits, and I mean this for real. In that the radical shifts in temperature from being in a shadow to versus being in direct sunlight out in the vacuum of space, and what that would do to your body. I can't see that air conditioner or heater that's hanging on your back, battery powered, keeping up with that, and also the radiation that suit should be blocking. Forget it. We're going to talk about the capsule itself in just a bit, but that's one of the things right there that makes me go, what do you think about that and the spacesuit? If the spacesuit was supposed to do what it was supposed to do, is it possible that it could keep up with those 200-degree shifts in temperature that would happen in seconds?
Well, von Braun, who was a former Nazi who was in charge of the Apollo program, wrote a book called Conquest of the Moon. I think you can buy an antique copy of it for about $85. We have a copy of it. And then it says a couple of interesting things. First of all, he says it's impossible to go to the moon in a single rocket. He said you have to have 3 rockets, each one taller than the Empire State Building, each one weighing 10 times the amount of the Queen Mary ship. Of course, they went in one rocket, 1/30th of that. He basically recanted on his math by about a factor of 45,000% to say they could go to the moon. And then secondly, he said that when you land on the moon, and you'll see this if you can go to Conspiracy Corner at Sibrel.com, click on the Russia story, you'll see an artist depiction of them on the moon, and they basically build an igloo in the dirt. Because von Braun said these little particles of sand that hit the Earth all the time and burn up in the atmosphere don't burn up on the moon. Sometimes they're traveling at, 3,000 miles an hour, up to 20,000 miles an hour. And they would go through your skull, the spacesuit, the spacecraft, and cause a catastrophic failure. He said every 24 hours there'd be a 50% chance of a catastrophic failure. And so you'd have to go into a cave, and that's depicted in this drawing. Additionally, they got the Earth really big there, in the background, which is how it would look. But there's not a single Apollo picture with the huge Earth in the background on the surface of the moon. Not a single one. I think that would be the picture you'd want to do. You see, they couldn't fake, the position of the continents relative to the point of view and the clouds going by and it rotating. It was too difficult, so they just didn't show it. And they did the same thing with the TV picture. I mean, in 1967, I Dream of Jeannie went from black and white to color. And in 1967, Bewitched went from black and white to color. And in 1967, Gilligan's Island went from black and white to color. Now, I think if Gilligan's Island is worthy of color, surely putting a man on the moon, the greatest technical accomplishment of all time, you'd have a high-resolution color camera. But they deliberately didn't use it, and they basically what aired was fourth generation, a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a TV image, very snowy. It really could have been shot in someone's backyard with a spotlight at night. And everyone, wept and, cheered, and it kind of burned that impression in. And even when much clearer pictures came out that proved photographic fraud, they refuse to see it because it already burned in their minds that they went. You know, it's really hard for them to accept anything else. Kind of like if I say, hey, Jimmy, let me take you out to this great restaurant, and this cockroach crawls across the table, no matter how good the steak is. What do you remember of cockroach? What do you remember 30 years from now? Cockroach. You know? And when people have that burned in, we went to the moon and they're crying and cheering, it's really hard to undo that. Really hard. You have to be truly open-minded and willing to accept failure and admit failure in order to accept us.
Have you been to the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum in D.C.?
I have.
Okay, I'm glad. I've been there a couple of times, maybe a few times. And one of the things, and I talked to Jay Widener about this the other night, is when you go and see those space capsules and you go up and you look inside of Apollo, honestly, I swear, I'm not saying it's because of your film or documentary or what I know. I'm saying when you see it firsthand, the first thing that pops into your mind is no way. No way, no how did that, no, stop. It just doesn't, it looks like, I was telling Jay, it reminded me of like a 1965 Volkswagen Beetle, that kind of technology. When you look at it, things just don't add up. It just doesn't.
No, 1965 Volkswagen Beetles are good cars. I would say this was more like a really nice doghouse.
And you understand what I'm trying to say here, right?
Yeah, I mean the design that you could poke your finger through the titanium foil or whatever it was, and the idea that they could power against 250 degrees heat and get it down to 72 degrees on a bank of car batteries running air conditioned for 3 days. I just, and they say, the specifications electronically, the schematics electrically, they are not classified. They're just not available because they accidentally got destroyed. Even the Saturn V specifications got destroyed. You can't even prove, unless you got old copies of, that the fuel was not sufficient for escape velocity. It was only sufficient for going into Earth orbit. You could figure that out. You know what I mean? And then, poor Ron Howard wanted to make this, IMAX film, and you watch it, he wants to commemorate how great the moon landings are, and 90% of it are reenactments. And sometimes, even though it's, 70 millimeter IMAX, you see this tiny square of about 10% of the screen in the middle, and you can see a VHS tracking line because the only way he could find the footage was from renting it from Blockbuster, just like I did. Because he asked NASA to transfer this stuff first generation to, IMAX, and that's when the tapes accidentally disappeared. Now, they have the Constitution and the, Declaration of Independence, 250 almost years old, but they don't have something that's like, 48 years old. They misplaced it. And, because he was about to transfer these, not too brilliant sets because they were shooting fourth generation black and white. He was going to transfer it at super high resolution and project it the size of a football field or half that size on a screen. And you would really see, if it were fake or real, you'd see it pretty clearly. And they weren't going to allow that to happen. That's when they accidentally misplaced. I'm estimating at least 1,000 pounds of tapes. I put 1,000 pounds somewhere the other day, and I just can't figure out where I put it.
Yeah, it's just missing, right? Well, have you ever thought about? And this is how my brain works. But go with me on this for a second, Bart. The most extraordinary event in human history, right? We walked on the moon. It's the most extraordinary event ever. Why aren't there literally hundreds of blockbuster full feature movies based on this and documenting and covering? The only one that I can think of is Apollo 13, and that's the one that was messed up. Why haven't they? Why don't they? Why doesn't Hollywood care about this important historical event, and why don't they make movies about it? Is it because we would see that it was faked, right? If we shot a bunch of spectacular moon footage of, guys on the moon, that we would be able to go back and say, is that wrong for me to think like that? Why aren't there more Hollywood movies based on the Apollo missions?
Well, to tell you the truth, Jimmy, and all my work on this for 20 years, I've never even thought about that. That's a really good point. If they made, the Ten Commandments movie or, Saving Private Ryan, all these World War II movies and things like that, why hasn't there ever been a drama about them going to the moon? There's not been a single movie about it. It's like they won't touch it. Now, there was a film, I think it came out in 1978, called Capricorn 1.
Right.
It's actually a very well-made movie, and it's about a fake, quote, Mars landing. And in the, VHS sleeve, it boasts on the back the only space film ever shot with NASA's full cooperation. So they never agreed to help out with any space film. Even 2001: Space Odyssey, they officially did not help out with it. But when a film comes out about a fake mission, then they're fully cooperate. I think they had to, otherwise they would say, it really was fake. So they had to turn the tables on them, use reverse psychology, and say, come on in and make a film about it.
Yeah, why is it? Forget about Apollo 13, and that's even a stranger movie actually to make. Where's Apollo 11? Where is that? That wouldn't that be the most epic movie to make? It's so triumphant and such a the biggest event, but it hasn't been made, and one has to just wonder why.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, Jimmy, I never thought about that. It's really interesting. Yeah, I've been working on this long, and I haven't considered that. That's a good point. I think they're afraid to do it. I remember there was a short film that won Best Academy Award, and I think it came out in 1991. It's called Precious Images, and in 6.5 minutes, they show, from the beginning of filmmaking up to that moment in history, like 1 second of, 500, 600, major motion pictures. And all of them are completely contrived. There's no documentaries or anything like that, and it's all, fictional films, except there's a shot of them on the moon. In there, among the rest of the fictions, up there for just 1 second. I thought that was kind of interesting. I think people in Hollywood, because that was their craft, they noticed that the pictures didn't look right, that they looked like they're in a TV studio because they work that way all the time. And I think this propelled the film forward. And, they had the top actors of the day, James Brolin and Elliot Gould and Karen Black, Kelly Savalas, what's her name, Brenda Ricardo or something like that. They had really top actors in it. And I think because the establishment was saying, hey, pay attention to this. And it's a pretty suspenseful film, even if, they did go to the moon. But I think the main thing you have to understand is the South Pole has 100-mile-per-hour winds, and it's almost 100 degrees below zero. And there are bases there because it's humanly possible. If it were possible to go to the moon in the 60s on the first attempt with 50 years older technology, there would be bases on the moon now, right now as we speak, but they're not. And the fact that they're not is proof itself that it cannot be done. Because if it can't be done today, how could it possibly be done 50 years ago?
And one of the other things I want to address, I want your opinion here, the meteorite idea and the thickness of what the capsules were made out of and the command module. It doesn't sit right with me. There's nothing to deflect, and there's no way to repair it. And how could they possibly dodge everything that was coming at them? Surely, if you went to the moon, there would be stories about them having to repair holes in the capsule, and we were hit by this, and we lost pressure. There would be those stories, and they are just, quite frankly, not there. And I just have a hard time buying into that now. Knowing what I know today, it seems like they would have been riddled with stuff, and they had to make repairs.
Well, people don't realize that when Apollo 12, the second mission to the moon, in December of 1969, 6 months later, people were phoning in the networks complaining that reruns of I Love Lucy were being interrupted. And then about a minute and a half into it, their color camera, the astronaut accidentally, in quotes, pointed at the sun, ruining all the television images for the entire mission. So they saw these images in 1969 July, but they didn't see them the second time. The third time, they allegedly, had this failure where they had to, save the crew. They never left Earth orbit either. It's just you get people dramatically interested back in the program. And by Apollo 14, it was 2 years after Apollo 11. They had 2 years of Kubrick or whatever to pass on and artistry to, and then to get their act together. But the thing is, people have already accepted it, that it's real. So it's actually easier to fool them in the later missions because you've already won them over. You're preaching to the choir. You know what I mean? And they took advantage of that. And,
Well, a meteorite, that there was a slip of the tongue, the meteorite, if it's traveling at, I'm pulling numbers out of the air, 20,000 miles an hour, wouldn't it just like go in one side of the capsule and out the other, or maybe even take out a couple of astronauts in the meantime?
Well, any particle, even the size of a grain of sand, yes, it would go in and out, and it would cause an air leak, which would cause decompression, either of the spacecraft or the spacesuit. And to my knowledge, they had no repair equipment for that eventuality. It wasn't even discussed. I don't see how you could repair it. I mean, maybe if you're in your spacesuits, maybe you possibly could repair the lunar module in your spacesuits and pump the air back in, possibly, maybe. But the fact that von Braun said, you had to go into a cave and they never did, and they had so many missions and hours on the moon that he said it was a 1 in 4 chance, that they were so many times on the moon, 1 in 4 chance. And it was, it's a 50% chance every 24 hours. So eventually you're gonna have a catastrophic failure. And to say they went all these times, 6 times, I never had it. It's against the odds that the genius said. So what can you do?
Exactly. And with when you're traveling that 250,000 miles or whatever, 237,000 miles out to the moon, you have one side of the command module heating up to just stupid temperatures. And then the way that this is their explanation, they would rotate the craft to the cool side and allow it to heat up and allow the hot side to cool down, and that's how they got there. Again, is that just too much for us to grasp?
No, it's a great theory, just like vaccines are theoretical. But that doesn't mean vaccines work, and that doesn't mean that actually worked. I mean, there are only 3 people there, and 5 billion of us to convince, and only 3 people there. If they said it worked, how can we disprove it? You know what I mean? There's no independent press coverage. World War II and all those terrible events happened, in front of everybody. But this event, there's no independent press coverage. A TV picture completely controlled by the federal government and the Nixon administration. If they say it's on the moon, then it must be on the moon. I mean, we had no reason to doubt them. And, but, without all this time going by, you can, the longer it goes on, the more absurd you can see the notion it really is.
Now, what about the one thing that everybody keeps bringing up, NASA too, not just you and I and other, the Van Allen radiation belt? How, if we were to pass through it, what would the results of that be? Would we come back to Earth and just die of cancer, quickly? What kind of exposure are we looking at, and how could we actually technically avoid it, knowing what we know today? It would be obviously protection on the capsule itself, but also passing through it very quickly too as well. What would the real effects be of that radiation?
Well, if your listeners go to Sibrel.com, the Conspiracy Corner, go down to the Orion article. It references the actual charts that von Braun was given by Dr. James Van Allen. And he said it would be at least 5 rem per hour to 100 rem per hour. 1 rem per hour would kill you. So it's at least 5, to 20 times more dangerous than previously believed. In fact, in 1994, when the space shuttle went to its highest altitude, they, to their surprise, were seeing the radiation with their eyes closed at nighttime. When they slept, they'd see little fireworks from the radiation going through the spacecraft and through the retinas of their closed eyes. And they reported the following, word for word: the radiation belt surrounding Earth is more dangerous than previously believed. Well, previously believed can only be the Apollo missions. So it's more dangerous than believed during the Apollo missions. But wait a minute, they're like 650 miles away from the beginning of it. Imagine radiation so severe you could see it with your eyes closed from 650 miles away. And then, wait a minute, if it's more dangerous than previously believed, then how could a crew 650 miles from it know more about it than the people in the middle of it? The only way is if they never were in the middle of it, you see. So there's an admission right there. People would just, connect the dots.
I'm reading it here. I didn't know it was 25,000 miles thick. So
yeah, now basically I contacted NASA and I asked to speak to this guy in the video who said they have yet to develop the technology to go through the radiation. They would not let him speak to me. And I wrote them these questions, and any question that was kind of, innocuous, they answered. But when I asked any difficult question, they just acted like I never asked the question. And then I asked, well, you had 2 Geiger counters on board. Could I please have the Geiger counter readings of the radiation belt and rim? And they said it's a classified secret. And I said, wait a minute. If you sent a probe with taxpayer funds to the sun to find out the temperature, you tell us and you tell science. And if you send a probe to Jupiter to find out how much hydrogen is in Jupiter's atmosphere, you just tell us the reading. So this is just a part of nature, how much radiation is in the radiation belt. So why would a part of nature be classified? Unless, of course, it would prove that the radiation is so severe that the Apollo astronauts could never have, gone through it. And that's what the data shows.
Did any of the astronauts get sick?
No, not a single one ever. And none of them have ever died of cancer, to my knowledge, either. If you're a pilot or steward or stewardess, you go up and you got a radiation detector on the belt, just like people who work with X-rays.
Right.
Because you're just going 5 miles up, 5 miles into the radiation. Can you imagine being almost 300 miles into it? How much radiation there'd be, or going through it? You know what I mean? I don't know what to say. It just, and that's admitted in this video. The technology to survive going through the belts does not yet exist. And when I asked to speak to the guy who sent it, they wouldn't let me. When I asked for the Geiger counter readings, what they were, they wouldn't show it to me. They said I had to file a Freedom of Information Act to get it.
As far as I know, everybody did kind of grow up to be ripe old men. I don't think any of them got sick or died of cancer. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
No, one had a motorcycle accident, one had a heart attack, another guy was in his 80s, you know what I mean?
Right.
Open heart surgery, so forth. So they're all reasonable, but none cancer, none radiation. They never got sick, never vomited, nothing.
Nobody lost their hair.
Right. No, that's true.
Now, in Astronauts Gone Wild, which is... It's difficult to watch at best, right? It's a tough film to get through. It's uncomfortable, but I think it's
difficult for me to watch it too.
Yeah, I can only imagine, man. And thank you for talking about it, because it's got to be uncomfortable. But it was also a film that needed to be made. Somebody had to do it. You were the guy that did it. First question, and then let's discuss that. Are you proud of it, or maybe do you wish you maybe approached it a different way today?
No, I am not proud of it. If I had the opportunity to make it again today, I would not do it. I told the astronauts that I was doing a documentary about the moon mission, which was true. I am doing a documentary about the moon mission. I never told them that I thought it was fake. They assumed that I was one like many other journalists who were, there to listen to their propaganda. So I challenged them instead. They got angry and so forth. One guy kicked me, one guy punched me. And, it is, I suppose, good for the record to show, what they did. What's really interesting to me is that the CIA or whoever never warned them. Surely if they didn't go to the moon, which is true, and I'm, looking into it, surely if they're doing their job, my phone calls are monitored. So they knew we were setting up these astronaut interviews and going to spring, a new point of view on them, and they didn't warn them, and I guess because it's true, very honorable, patriotic people are in the government at the CIA, NSA, and so forth. And I think it makes this new generation of those type of people in the government and these intelligent, offices upset that the Nixon administration did this and besmirched the reputation of America. And so they don't like them. They don't like what they did. And so they deliberately chose not to warn them and let them flounder on their own. And you can see that in Astronauts Gone Wild.
Out of all of the astronauts, and we could actually take each one separately and discuss it because each one is unique in its own event, if you will. Out of each one of them, was there one interview that you came away with just going, okay, now he is lying? Which would be the best example?
Well, we have Buzz Aldrin telling the truth. And his interview where we had 2 cameras and a monitor set up, and we showed him the footage that he was the cinematographer. He took himself to be a photographer. So he's the one who shot this fake scene that we uncovered. And he saw it, and he said angrily, "Oh, and this makes you a real famous person for having discovered this. What an ego you must have to want to become successful this way." Well, wait a minute. This makes me a real famous person for having discovered this. That's an admission that I'm on the right track, because how can I become famous for exposing it if it's not true? So he actually admitted on camera by that statement that I'm correct, the moon missions are fake. And when he realized that, he backpedaled, and then he threatened to sue us if we showed his remarks acknowledging the fraud to anyone. And, we put it in there in Astronauts Gone Wild. You can see, maybe I did, 2 wrongs don't make a right, tricking them into this trap, At the time, I thought, well, they deserve it if they're guilty, just like O.J. Simpson, if he's guilty, deserves being hounded, if he's scot-free, if he did it. But now looking back on it, I think even if they are guilty, which they are, they deserve respect. And they deserve to be talked to respectfully. And I did not do that. And I would not do it again, knowing what I know now. A funny thing happened on the way to the moon is enough proof that they didn't go. This is there. It is what it is, But again, if I had to make it over again, I would not have done it.
Well, what would you have done differently? I mean, how would you have approached them if you wouldn't use that style? Let's swear on the Bible, and pin them into a corner. If you weren't going to do that, how would you question them differently?
Well, I don't know that there is any way to do it differently. If I said I'm doing a documentary about the moon landings being fake, would you mind answering questions about it? I doubt if any of them would have agreed to the interview. Again, I'm picking on them a little bit because they're the ones who did it. And, like I said, I think the first film is better. It shows they didn't do it. They're going to have to make their own peace for what they did, just like I do for my mistakes in the past. And I think they deserve a little more respect than I gave them.
Yeah, right on. I can give you that. I'll give you that. One of the moments in the film, and it's something that for me has not been addressed directly. You did bring it up, but once you know what you're looking at, and I'm talking about the first Apollo 11 press conference when they come out on stage. And at that moment, Bart, and I'm glad that you caused us to look at their faces and their emotions. When they come out, it looks to me, and I've watched it so many times, that quite frankly, they don't want to be there. They're not happy. You would think that after that crowning moment of human evolution, it's the pinnacle, it's the peak, that their mood would be the exact opposite of what they were doing there on stage. And instead, we get some guys that, quite frankly, didn't want to answer questions and didn't want to be there. And what do you think about that scene when you look at it now? You've exposed this to us, but what do you think about that scene? Is that actually what is going on?
Well, being a filmmaker, what convinces me is the newly discovered footage of them taking a shot over and over again right in front of your eyes. However, about 1 out of 5 people, or 20%, say what convinced them is their expressions during the press conference, of which I only showed about 20 seconds or so. I mean, they look like they're at a funeral. They look like their mother just died, and they don't want to talk. They keep passing the buck, and they just look so discouraged. It's mind-boggling. It in no way whatsoever fits with conquering heroes. They landed on the moon. They did it. They survived. Isn't life grand? We didn't die. You know, it looks the exact opposite. It looks exactly like they lied about it, and they are lying, and they hate the fact that they are lying. You can see it in their expressions on their faces, I think, crystal clear.
And there was an exchange between Neil and who is the command module guy?
Mr. Collins.
Yes, Colin. When they don't have their story straight, and they both look at each other on who was gonna correct this, and it was about the stars, right? And tell me about that moment and how that hit you.
Well, they took an automobile to the moon, but they never took a telescope. And I think a telescope would be more important. Plus, are you really going to drive away from, more than walking distance from your life support system, and this car might break down and you don't have enough oxygen, water, or energy to walk back? I don't think you're going to do that. I think that's an unnecessary risk. So, each, Moon rover in today's money costs $60 million. It had about, probably 20% of the parts of GPAS, very few parts to it. And yet it cost $60 million. And, I think, even little things like the slow motion footage, when you see them bouncing around on the moon, to me, that's proof. I mean, you double the speed, and it's so clearly slow motion. They didn't take a telescope. They could have just shot a picture of the stars with no atmosphere. It'd be like the Hubble, 30 years beforehand. But they never took a telescope because they couldn't fake the astrological positions of the constellations. And theoretically, deeper galaxies yet to be discovered that later, if they make a bigger telescope on Earth, would prove that they weren't there. So they never photographed it. They never talked about it. But you can't help. One of the reporters asked during the press conference of Armstrong, did you remember seeing stars? And he says, I don't remember. I don't recall. And it's like, oh, wow, okay. If you're on the moon and you're going through this, amazing experience, and you look over the black horizon, either you're going to see stars or you're not. And if you, didn't, I'm sure you would have expected to. You would have talked about it. And if you did, it'd be, this, beautiful. They have pictures from Earth just during, sunset of the launch of the space shuttle, and you see the sun, the field, and stars in the sky. So surely, you know what I mean? You could see stars in the sky, but he said he doesn't remember. And when he says that, Buzz Aldrin flinches, and Michael Collins, who was supposed to be orbiting the moon while they two walked, says, I don't remember seeing any. Wait a minute, except he wasn't there. But because they were all together for 8 days in the same capsule, he had the same experience, and he kind of forgot. I don't remember seeing any. He's trying to help him from the debriefing. He's supposed to say, I don't remember, I didn't see any. And he's like, I don't remember, I'm covering for you. But wait a minute, he wasn't there. So when you get the written transcript from NASA, it's different than the press conference, which is also from NASA. And the video footage, which very few people have access to, it is Collins who says, I don't remember seeing any. But the transcript, which is what almost everyone gets, it says Buzz Aldrin said it. So lightning struck twice in the same spot. First, Michael Collins said he was there when he wasn't, and then the person doing the transcription makes a mistake in that exact same spot where Collins makes a mistake. And they say Buzz Aldrin said, I don't remember saying that. That's two coincidences back to back at the same moment in time. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I don't want to drive this home, make too much of this, but we kind of have to. Because if it was me or you, Bart, and we just got back from the moon, we walk in that press conference with our arms in the air, music, fanfare, dude, we just did. You know what I mean? And when somebody asks you about the stars or the where's the enthusiasm? Well, you know what? I was looking for stars, man. I didn't see them. I tried. I wanted to see what it would look like on the moon. Where's that answer? Instead of everybody looking down at the table going, oh man, another question.
Well, not only is the 20 seconds, the prime, scene of that, and a funny thing happened. If you go further down on the YouTube channel under Moon Landing Films, there's the entire press conference unedited. I synchronized it from 2 camera angles, color corrected it, and you can see the whole press conference where they're just acting like they're at a funeral for over an hour.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's so telling. I'm surprised no one picked up on it.
It looked to me like, and go ahead and send me all the hate email you want, but those guys did not want to be there. They were looking down, they were fidgeting, and they couldn't wait for it to end. And that's not what you do after you come back from the moon.
Yeah, if you ask Adam, a 2-choice question, does it look like they're in the losing locker room of the Super Bowl or the winning locker room of the Super Bowl? Without a doubt, 99, 100% of the people would vote. It looks like they're in the losing locker room, and yet they're supposed to be in the winning one. Totally contradicts it.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. That's what I'm talking about. Could you imagine going into this, Super Bowl locker room? You've just won the Super Bowl. Yeah, man. Okay, man. You know what I mean? That's not what you would do. And that natural human reaction to coming back after something like that is what we wanted to see. And that press conference was absolutely the exact opposite. And you can go to Bart Sibrel.com and see all of this, by the way. And if you go to the conspiracy corner links that he's talking about, everything is right there, and it's all pretty comprehensive and well written. I've spent a lot of time on this site over the years, and you need to go and check it out for yourself. You just need to do that. Now, what about? I wanted to ask you about some of the views of like Edgar Mitchell and Gordon Cooper about the ET side of things. What do you make of that and Ed's and Gordon's take on this, where they seem to be stepping to the right of the status quo from NASA?
Well, here we have Edgar Mitchell, who claims he walked on the moon when he did not. Okay, so we got that on one side. Then he claims aliens are real. Well, wait a minute. He just claimed the moon landing was real, and it's not real. And then he claims aliens are real. I say they're not real. I say we've been conditioned with all these sci-fi alien movies to believe in aliens because aliens are coming in our future, like Reagan said, to unite the world in a struggle or who knows what. But they're really brainwashing us into believing they're aliens. And I say if the guy who says the moon landings are real when they're not says aliens are real, you better believe they're not.
Okay. Wow. Okay, that came from nowhere. Really? So the triple hoax. Okay.
Well, there are 2 books out there. One is called One Cosmos Under God, and one is called Privileged Planet. And they explain from a mathematical point of view, scientifically, that life existing even on Earth is like winning the Powerball 20 times in a row. That life should not even exist on Earth. So the idea that there's 2 Powerball winners 20 times in a row, really it's exact opposite of what we're taught, which is life is abundant everywhere. These books scientifically, mathematically prove that life is extremely rare and has to have been done by a creator. And life may only exist on Earth and nowhere else, the exact opposite of what we're being told, just like the moon landings.
What is it? What are the objects that we see there now?
What objects are you talking about?
The lunar lander. What's left from the LEM, the tracks, and that were left from the rover, and the other stuff that is there.
Well, according to NASA, there's no earthbound telescope powerful enough to resolve to see artifacts if there are any on the moon. And then they claim that the Hubble telescope is too powerful, though I know of people who work for the Hubble, and they said you very well could see footprints if you pointed it there, and they never did. So, there's a lot of folklore about it. Now, they have lunar probes, allegedly, that show these scratches, that are alleged, foot tracks. But you have to remember, they already faked, 47 years ago, full body pictures of an astronaut on the moon when he was in a television studio. They They already did that. That's pretty brazen. And they did it with much older photographic technology than now. So to say that, after doing, that super high resolution on a fake moon surface picture, that these little scratches from a satellite image of the moon are somehow proof, that's like, asking the fox to testify, in his own defense after he stole the chicken. I mean, you're saying NASA proves that the moon landings are fake and they're the ones who faked it, or that they're real when they're the ones who faked it. I mean, it's pretty absurd, to say that these little scratches are proof when they already faked full body pictures,
What do you think Neil Armstrong was referring to when, I think it was Neil, that said they're already here? What was he in that transmission? What did that mean?
That's a fake story. It never happened. There's no transmission of him saying that. It's a folklore rumor. It didn't happen. You see, NASA doesn't care why you believe that the moon landings are real, only that you do. And if it helps believing in UFOs and they really sent secret crews to the other side of the moon and there's alien, pyramids there and that's why the pictures are fake. I mean, the vast majority of the UFO community acknowledges the pictures from Apollo 11 are fake. They acknowledge those are fake pictures, meaning Neil Armstrong is not on the moon, he's in a set. And while they acknowledge that, most of them say, yeah, but that's because they're really communing with aliens on a picnic on the other side of the moon. And that's simply not true. NASA doesn't care why you believe that they're real as long as you do. And if you believe they have the capability to go to the moon and they're hiding it, that's great. They just want you to believe they can go even though they can't.
So what about the transmission, allegedly, of them saying they're watching us? And we can see, and they're huge, and the crafts are huge, and we can see lights on the rim of the of the crater. What about all of that?
That's folklore. I mean, I've studied this, I would think, more than most people. I never heard that recording. That's just, folklore. It's amazing. You ask somebody what they saw on YouTube yesterday, and they get half of it wrong. You know what I mean? I've talked to people about this. This new Planet X object out there, and everyone says, it's near Saturn. They never said it was near Saturn. That's some other YouTube guy, and they're combining two half of stories together into one. And that's something that happened yesterday. You can imagine how foggy people's memories are about something that long ago.
That's interesting. So you're saying that all of those alleged transmissions that happened that were picked up by ham radio guys and that are out there never happened?
Absolutely. I'm pretty good at discerning people's voices. I used to do impressions. And I would do a side-by-side comparison like I did with the Kubrick film, the Kubrick's alleged real voice from another interview. And I've never even heard the sample. At least we have a fake Kubrick interview to compare it with the real Kubrick. But we don't have these transmissions. I've never heard of one. Otherwise, I would have been sent links to them, hundreds of times over the last 30 years. Never got one link to the audio of Neil Armstrong, because anyone, could tell whether it's really him or not, whether there's a cut between what really happened and someone staged something. This is just folklore, There's no proof of it whatsoever.
And what do you think about? I'm drilling you, man. I'm drilling you. You're in the witness chair in court right now. I'm just drilling you. What about the other videos that, and there's lots of them, showing objects in the background? There's one of the LEM. It's pretty incredible. I'm sure you've seen it. And there is an obvious a triangle in the background, and it's white, and it cruises right through the frame. What are we seeing there?
Oh, it's fake. I mean, this stuff is just invented by people who are trying to be cute. I mean, there is no Apollo 11 footage of UFOs. If anyone would have seen it, it would have been me. I've never seen it, And it's so easy to stage things now, but it was that long ago. They're just, all these people who want to believe what they want to believe, and they're being cute, like with the Kubrick interview, and it's pretty amusing. But, all you got to do is logically ask yourself, why can't, they go to the moon today? Why does it take Russia 15 years from a goal set today to reach the moon? And 50 years ago, they did it in half the time, only 8 years, It doesn't add up. It's that simple. They didn't go to the moon. Now, you can think they didn't go for aliens or Nixon's a liar, or they just couldn't go, which is really the reason. And, that's what it is. The whole UFO thing is a distraction.
And what do you think about Jay Widener? he's talked about this with me many times about the Apollo stuff. Yes, it was hoaxed because we already had the technology and we were already on the moon and we had advanced technology. Yes, the moon landings were a hoax, and those were all done on sound stages here at Disney and what have you, because we already had the technology to get there and we were already there.
Well, if you were already there, that means you had the capability to go. And if you had the capability to go, why would you fake it when you're trying to convince people that you have the capability to go? The best way to prove it is to shoot the real footage of it. You had the capability to go. They would have put a camera 24/7, on the side of the rocket and showed, the launch and had it running in the lower left-hand corner nonstop all the way to the Earth and the Moon if they really went. That's what they would have done to prove beyond any doubt of these rumors at that time that it was fake, and then they would have exploded something on the moon, like, big, firecracker, hand grenade, something like that. And that they never did that either. I mean, there's a lot of ways to convince that you're there, but very little ways, to really prove it, because he had no independent press coverage and just 3 government employees saying what they're told to say,
Was this the method of operation all the way through Apollo 17?
Well, I think they just repeated going to the moon because it costs so much money, allegedly, to do it. And if they're only doing Earth orbit, then it's going to cost, only 1/5 as much. You got 4/5 of the budget you can siphon off and do your own personal projects with. I think that's the only reason why they repeated going, is it just kind of was a cash cow for them. And that's why they did it. I mean, it comes out on NBC News, a few years ago during the latest, Afghan war, that Chinese company Halliburton was charging $40, for a plastic ice cube tray or something like that. It was $20. I think it was $20 for a plastic ice cube tray that you would buy retail at Walmart for 50 cents.
Right.
So that means they're exaggerating the cost of it 40 times. And no one did anything about it, I guess it's the fluoridation putting you to sleep.
What were the objects then, Bart, that the Soviet Union and the Chinese were tracking when we said we were going to the moon? Obviously, they were watching everything that we did. What were they tracking going to the moon? Empty capsules?
Well, I don't know that they could track it, but I think that's folklore too. In order to track something 3-dimensionally traveling through space, they'd have to have 3 satellites or points of view to triangulate it. And if they had 1, it wouldn't be enough. If they had 2, not enough. I think they simply bounced signals off of the moon, voice signals, TV, telemetry data, whatever, and it made it appear as though it was coming from the moon. Additionally, China and Russia, they're really not enemies. They're trading partners in the vast billions and billions of dollars. China runs over their own citizens, and I think 1990 with their own tanks, or was that 1989? And we still give them most favored nation training status. So I think, they know the truth. In fact, in China, it's taught in elementary school, high school, and college that the moon landings are fake. Now, they may say their latest probe saw pictures of it. They may say they, tracked it back in the 60s. It's only because it's part of some deal. We won't call you on your BS. You won't call us on our BS. It's some negotiated thing going on. But what they really believe is what they teach their billion people. And it's an absolute fact. And, grade school and high school and college, they teach that the moon landings are fake. That's what they teach in China. And Russia, you ask any Russian, you get a survey on the street in Russia, what percentage of the people think the moon landings are real? It's probably maybe 10%. 90%, you don't know that it was fake. And they say the only people who think it's real are Americans.
One of the angles on this, and I want everybody to listen to me for a second. One of the angles that I have issue with is the abrupt stoppage of Apollo. That seems funky to me. That there was no Apollo 18. There's some people that say that Apollo 18 really happened too, as well. There's, that we don't need to go there. But then we bounced off of Apollo into the space shuttle program, where it seemed like we were keeping our momentum going, with SpaceX. We had Soyuz and we had Apollo and Skylab still occurring, and then the space shuttle. But nothing really happened beyond that. And then we stopped the space. Right now we don't really have a space program. That's what's even stranger. And everything seemed to come to a screeching halt, as opposed to the moon base that we were supposed to have in 1969 that we dreamed about, and a hotel there on the moon, and commercialization and Pan Am flying out there. None of that happened. And it seems like today we're behind where we allegedly were in 1968 and 69. And that is the biggest counter argument to that the moon landings actually happened, that we never went anywhere with the space program. And today I honestly feel like it's backwards. And what do you think about that?
Well, I think in the last 10 attempts of, test passenger vehicles or actual passenger vehicles for satellites, I think only about half of them went into Earth orbit successfully. I think about the other half in the last 2 or 3 years, they blew up. Bronson's thing and military satellites and things like that. And they're trying to just get Earth orbit, 50 years after they went to the moon, and they're still only succeeding half of the time. I think that should tell you something.
Yeah, it just feels weird. I don't know where the technology went, unless we have some kind of parallel secret space program running in the background that we just don't know about. And that exploration has been ongoing, not only with the moon, but with Mars. That money has to have gone somewhere, and that momentum has to have gone somewhere. That where we are today just doesn't feel like where we should be, when the rest of the world has progressed, the internet and technology and computers and everything that we have that is just blown up and gone somewhere. The space program has gone backwards. And that's where I feel a little bit lied to. It just doesn't make sense unless there's something, completely black that is running in the background. Bart, are you there? I think we lost Bart.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening to what you said. It's very profound. And, time will tell. I think the longer time goes on, the more impossible the moon landing seem. And, the film Interstellar was really the first film that made a non-comical reference to the moon landings being fake. And then you have this comedy, but they're still saying, the moon landings are fake. Then you have Capricorn 1, and then I say the truth will come out. Just like, if you had cancer, you probably, better off knowing the truth, even if it's unpleasant. That's the way we really need to look at the truth about the moon landings.
What are you working on now? I know you said
I'm going to write a book.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to write a book called The Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, about a third done. And then I do Conspiracy Corner, kind of weekly alternative news through Sibrel.com. And that's about it. I hope to put it behind me and write only fiction in the future.
Well, you've certainly, like I said, you've nearly created an industry since 2001 on this from so many different angles, with other researchers jumping in. And once you open it up and cause people to think outside of the box, that's what they do. And they take it another step forward. And you are right at the center of it. And how do you feel about that? Is that a lot of responsibility, and is it heavy? Does it weigh on you, or, are you cool with it?
Well, it is heavy, I didn't plan on this being my little forte. It happens to be it. The way that I look at it, Jimmy, is if they could have gone to the moon, let's say they did have the technology in the 60s, even though they can't right now. Let's say they did have the technology to plant a flag. That would have a certain level of significance historically to mankind. But if they couldn't do it, and they lied about it, and they murdered people to keep it a secret, and they lied in the encyclopedias, to me, Jimmy, that's more profound of an event than if they had actually gone. And now that we have photographic proof that it was fake, what we have is one of the greatest events in human history, the faking of the moon mission out of pride. And very few people can learn from this moment in history because they're hoarding the truth from the rest of us.
I want to thank you for coming back on the show, Bart, and keep us posted when the book comes out, and I can't wait to get you back on. Thank you, man.
No problem. Glad to be here.
You got it. Bart Sibrel, everybody. Just a great interview. Had a great time with him on Coast. Had to bring him back tonight. Thank you, Bart. And I encourage everybody, just go to Sibrel.com, Sibrel.com. Conspiracy Corner. You're going to spend the next month there. Go and check it out. All of his videos are there. And it's just great stuff.
Telling the Kubrick character what to say, and yet at the beginning he acts surprised. So it's contrived, but some of it was taken out of context. You don't listen to the last half, and figure it out. But it's kind of fun, interesting. The fact is, if they're making this movie, even though it's a comedy, what they are actually saying is the moon landings are fake, and Kubrick probably had something to do with it, which both are probably. The moon landings are definitely fake, and Kubrick probably shooting 2001, at the time, about going to the moon, probably, that was the guy they would have chosen to make it look real. So it's kind of fun. It's telling the truth through the teeth, just like Obama did. The moon landings, are fake, which is he made a joke of all the while they're fake, you see. So it's, kind of interesting. At least we're talking about it, and people, know that it was fake, unfortunately. And
yeah, the one thing, and I brought this up on Coast on Friday with you, the one thing that prompted me to write you nearly in real time after I saw it happen, I wrote you and I said, okay, because I had to scratch my head and go, what? Okay, when did that come out? That was like 2001, 2002. Could he have been out there on the streets with the Bible and doing this thing in 1999? That is the one key thing here that would absolutely unravel the whole thing. So I wrote you and I said that. I said, okay, Bart, I know that the movie came out in 2001, but were you out there in 1999 speaking about this and doing the Bible thing? And you can emphatically say that none of that happened until 2000. Sibrel is an award-winning filmmaker, writer, and investigative journalist. He has produced films shown on ABC, NBC, CNN, The Learning Channel, USA, BET, and The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. He has appeared on The Daily Show, Geraldo, NBC, CNN, Fox, Tech TV, The Abrams Report. Last week, he was on Coast to Coast with me. He's back with us on Fade to Black tonight. Bart directed the Apollo documentary, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, and also Astronauts Gone Wild. Tonight, we're going to be discussing all of that. You can go to his website, www.sibrel.com, Sibrel.com. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Mr. Bart Sibrel. Bart, good evening, sir.
Hey, Jimmy, how's it going?
It's going fantastic, and thank you for coming back on with us. It's always great to have you on the show, and it was a lot of fun having you on Coast Friday night, and especially, with all the hubbub that's going around with that interview and everything else, and it was last minute, and thank you for coming on the Coast. It was a great conversation, and we just decided, the two of you, let's continue it and go a little bit deeper tonight. So thank you for finding the time to come on with us and share your thoughts with the Fade or Not family.
No problem.
Now, before we get started, because I do want to talk about the moon landing hoax, and we've got a lot of stuff to discuss there, and also my thoughts have certainly gotten stronger over the last year and a half since you were on the show. I can't believe it's been that long, but it has been. But now that the weekend too, and if that is indeed the case, and you're the guy that can make that statement, then there's nothing to consider in this alleged 1999 video. It is completely hoaxed. It's completely fake.
Well, definitely. The incident with the punch and everything, that was in September of 2002, and Kubrick died in March of 1999, and the difference between the two is 3.5 years. So they're referring to me 3.5 years before I became known for asking an astronaut around the Bible. But it's still pretty good, He says some relevant things. Again, I don't know if it's for fun. It probably is, but it's still, it's bringing awareness to the topic, even though it's fake, it shows you how something fake can be convincing, which there's another proof that the moon landings are fake right there.
Now let's back. Well, Kubrick could have been time travelers. That could be the error. Maybe they maybe.
You know, I just got back from the future, and I heard you say that.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's go a little bit before a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. Let's back up to that. Before that, when you were a kid, were you a fan of astronauts and Apollo and Gemini and Mercury and the space program in general?
I was the biggest fan I'd ever met in my whole life. My dad was in the Air Force, and as an officer, he got these kind of publicity stills. I think about a dozen 9x12 color pictures. I had them on my bedroom wall for 10 years, so I saw them nearly 4,000 times. And then when I was 14, there was this guy, one of the first guests on Oprah, and he was doing a couple other talk shows. He worked for Rocketdyne, a contractor of NASA, and he was there, and he was the English editor. So the thing was so departmentalized, no one saw the whole picture except him and the senior people, because he edited the grammar of all these memos going back and forth. And he saw that they weren't going to go to the moon. They were planning on faking it and so forth. And so I started producing, the film. I mean, I guess I planted a seed. When I was 14, 10 years later, I was a filmmaker. And actually, the guy who had produced that program was sitting beside me. I was editing something for him. I forget what it was. And I'm like, remember the guy in your show who said the moon landings are fake? And he put me in touch with them. And I originally turned down the project. I thought, there's some strange things about this. The shadows don't intersect, and the Russians are more advanced, and the radiation and the weird behavior of the astronauts. There's at least a 1 out of 4 chance they didn't go. And I like puzzles, and I'm kind of a relentless personality, so I turned it down. I figure if 1 out of 4 chance they really didn't go to the moon and I start overturning these rocks, might be hazardous to my health. So I thought, why should I die for someone else's lie? I always wanted to, have a future and a family, so I risked that. But 5 years went by, and I started reading the Bible about right and wrong and judgment, and I thought, that kind of makes sense, which means this spectacular lie, if it were a lie, would be very profound to history, and yet very few people would know about it. So we raised $500,000.
And has gone by. And let me tell you, Bart, I had email over the weekend after the Coast show, after everything that I posted, and I had Jay Widener on the show last Thursday too, as well as Coast to Coast on Friday. I've emailed over the weekend going, Jimmy, man, this could be real. It could be. It's funny, Bart, isn't it? People are going to see what they're going to see, and they're going to believe what they want to believe, no matter what we say about it. Do you find that strange?
Well, it's a work of art. It's not him. I mean, they talk about me having Aldrin swear on the Bible 3.5 years before it happened. The guy looks a little bit like him, got the same receding hairline, and it sounds a lot like him, I think, but it's not him. But it's interesting. I remember when Trump resigned, I think, from the 2012 election, and there was some roast at the White House, and Obama said, I'm glad you're out of the race now. Perhaps you can stop focusing on whether I was born in Kenya or not and focus on more important things, like whether or not the moon landings are real. And the fact is, the moon landings are not real. Obama born in Kenya, I have no idea, but it could be. You never know. That being the case, if you're really good and you're in control and you have, nothing to worry about, you can say something absurd like a joke. And that's kind of what this video is. There's that film coming out, Moonwalkers, in January. And I think they saw that and, came up with an idea, something like that. It's pretty clever. But if there's a 20-minute version out there, in the second half, I mean, the director's